Hey everyone, Gaijin Goomba here, and good lord with this Hello Neighbor game. Honest to god, I haven't seen a game like this blow up since FNAF. I guess it was only natural then that Mr. MatPat would get on the ball trying to unlock this game's many mysteries, such as who actually is this neighbor guy, what does he have in his basement, and why is he trying so hard to keep people out of it? We all must know! If you haven't seen that video yet, you might want to click that little eye up in the corner there and have a look. A lot of what I talk about today hinges off it. It's okay, I can wait. You back? Cool. As MatPat pointed out in his previous video, there are a massive number of religious symbols in this game. The 666 branding on the neighbor's shoe, the Bible chapter and verse written on the mailbox, the golden calf on the mug, the Judas reference seen in the painting, and finally we discovered that our good neighbor has been reading Faust, coming to the conclusion that he's likely making deals with the devil. And I gotta say, bravo good sir, you certainly do have an eye for cultural references. But I'm wondering, with all these pieces that we've discovered, what is the conclusion of the puzzle? Well, like I said, MatPat mentioned in multiple promotional images of the game, a book labeled Faust is sitting right next to the neighbor while he casually sips from his golden calf mug, giving us the impression that he's been reading it. And it's this one detail, this one book, this one German folk story that explains to us not only what the neighbor is hiding, but why. Matt gave us some insight into the story of Faust, but I want to go a little bit deeper. After all, the story of Faust isn't a simple one. It's been recreated and reinterpreted several times over 4 centuries, but it was the German author Johann Wolfgang von Goethe who was the original playwright. And what version of Faust is our neighbor reading? It's difficult to see with the image zoomed in so much, but if you look hard enough, you can see that is in fact Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. This is critical as many interpretations of the Faust story are drastically different from each other. In Johann's story, Faust is a successful scholar but is bored and depressed with his life to a point that he considers suicide. But at the peak of his depression, a mysterious figure appears before him, offering knowledge and power in order to bring some semblance of joy and entertainment to Faust's life. Though it wasn't Satan that appeared before him, but a representative named Mephistopheles. And it wasn't raw knowledge or power that Faust would receive, but instead the service of Mephistopheles for 24 years in exchange for Faust's soul. Throughout part 1 of this story, Faust uses Mephistopheles' power to seduce a beautiful woman named Gretchen. Now she starts off being your typical innocent girl, but through a combination of Faust's seduction and Mephistopheles' otherworldly influences, she ends up in a secret relationship with Faust, which in turn produces an illegitimate child. Lamenting in the realization of her sin, Gretchen drowns her child and is imprisoned for murder. In an attempt to save Gretchen from the death sentence, Faust tries to free her from the dungeon, only to discover that she will not flee with him, which inevitably redeems her and she's allowed into heaven upon her death. However, this puts Faust back at square one and he goes back into another deep despair and curses Mephistopheles for creating this unholy affair which has taken his family away from him. Now do me a favor, put a pin on this ending because we're going to be coming back to it later. But let's go back to the game. As MatPat said, when you enter the basement you hear a child coughing, a woman crying, and someone shouting run only to be followed by someone saying shh. And as you're being chased down by the neighbor, you piece together that this basement is more than just a simple room filled with satanic candles, but a series of confusing corridors, locked doors, and barred off areas, all accumulating to a room with a sign saying hide here. But you can't get in, it's locked. After instead hiding under the bed when the neighbor catches up with you, you hear a scream coming from your right, which is exactly where the hide here room is, to which the neighbor immediately enters the room, clearly having more interest in what's in that room than you. So what's in that room that the neighbor character has worked so hard to keep secret? So much so that he's killed other snoops and laid traps in every part of the house to catch them in. Well, to put it simply, his family. Consider this. We know that our neighbor has sold himself to the devil. I mean, the guy is branded with the sign of the beast, 666, on his shoe labeling that his soul is damned. But for what? Well, much like Johann's Faust, who sold his soul for a better life, it's likely that the neighbor character also sold his soul to obtain a joy and success in a life that he hated. I mean, really, how much financial success are you gonna get from being a clown? Yeah, remember that? In his previous video, Matt was able to deduce that the neighbor's character was likely a circus clown.
Who is the neighbor? Well, the simple and really creepy answer is that he works for the circus. The guy is a clown. Literally a clown.
Not exactly a glamorous life that brought all the honeys to the yard, but perhaps a pact with the devil changed that. Just like Faust, who wanted to use Mephistopheles to get to Gretchen and eventually a child, it wouldn't be so hard to believe that the neighbor's character would also use his pack to get a family of his own. And that's where the voices in the basement come to play. Again, when we head down the stairs, you hear the coughing of a child, crying, and then someone yelling run, only to be shushed. It's very possible that we're not hearing the echoes of the past, but of the present. A woman and children running from whatever just came into the basement, which would explain why the basement extends into hallways of traps and locked doors. They're to hinder whatever's chasing them. It also explains why you can't enter the hide here room too. It's not meant for you, it's meant for someone else to hide in. Also, going back to a previous game theory, there was mention of all these weird candles placed in the basement with the bed and the crib. And while it's true that candles are often used in satanic rituals, they are also used in protective wards. Images of Christ, salt, and candles are all common items used to create religious wards that would keep the evil spirits of Satan at bay. These candles are everywhere around the bed and the crib that supposedly his wife and kids would sleep in, staying hidden and protected. But why would the neighbor character be using wards to keep demons out? Isn't he trying to keep people away? Well, it's because he's not trying to keep people out of his home, just one specific person, or should I say demon, Mephistopheles. Matt came to the conclusion that the shadowy figure standing behind the neighbor during the Faust revelation is the devil, and I agree. Though given the fact that the Faust book is placed so prominently in the picture, I would say it's more likely the devil's agent, Mephistopheles, or at the very least the guy who the neighbor sold his soul to. But we never see him in game, do we? That's because I believe wholeheartedly that all these traps, all these locks, everything that is keeping the player out of the house is to serve one purpose: to keep the Mephistopheles-like entity out of the house and away from his family. Remember that it was Mephistopheles that was blamed for the destruction of Faust's family. And also remember that it's been noted in several religious tales and stories that demons can take on the shape of all kinds of people. Like I said in my Bayonetta video last October, demons were believed to be able to take on the form of both men and women. So when you're being hounded by a demon able to take any shape, trying to corrupt your family like Mephistopheles corrupted Faust's family, you can't trust anyone, not even your own neighbor. That's right, based on the parallels to Faust and the voices we hear not only running from you, but screaming in the hide here room when you get close. Not only you, but everyone else who snuck into the neighbor's house were found and murdered simply because a paranoid condemned man is afraid of losing what he sold his soul to obtain. That's why we see him crying at the end of the third alpha. He isn't some demon or monster or twisted display of humanity. He's a tragic man who sold his soul to the devil and is now trying to do everything in his power to prevent his contractor from destroying the one thing he cares about, his family. I know that's a whole lot to take in, but what do you guys think? Is Hello Neighbor a reimagining of the German classic Faust, or is there something more biblical and more sinister hidden behind these locked and barred doors? Let me know what you guys think. In the meantime though, if you'd like to check out more devilish culture in gaming, click here to check out that Bayonetta video I mentioned earlier and how her provocative design is completely on par to her source material. And if you still haven't seen MatPat's video on Hello Neighbor yet, be sure to check that out as well. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on all of our newest Theorist videos. But until next time everyone, this is Gaijin Goomba, signing out.